Good morning. Hi, Joe. Hi, Julia. Hi, Beth. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Annalisa. Hi, Jen. So good to be with you all this morning. Thank you for coming live. That's always so nice to have actual faces when you are in a Zoom session. Um, you are really welcome in these sessions to have your camera on, to have your camera off, whatever feels most comfortable for you, or have it on for a bit while we're chatting and then off while you're journaling, whatever you want. Um, so, for those of you who haven't been to one of these seed sowing sessions before, there's a bit of a format that they follow. I'm Jenny, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. I think everyone does know. Um, so the format is that I often do a little bit of teaching at the beginning. And then we'll go into journaling for probably 20 minutes or so. So if you haven't got a notepad and pen, do make sure that you go and grab one now. Um, and the journaling is stream of consciousness journaling. So I will set a question or offer an invitation to think about something or journal on something, a prompt, if you will. And then you will get 3 or 4 minutes, depending on the question, to journal. And it's really just about writing whatever is coming to your mind in that moment down. Don't think about it too hard. Just write. Just keep the pen flowing and going. And what you might find is that you go off on a complete tangent. But that's really interesting and helpful because that obviously, if you've gone off on a tangent, that's really important information from your subconscious just now. You need to know that, whatever it is. Um, and yeah, and once we've done that, we will reflect on those and we'll have some time for sharing. And this time I'm going to do a little bit more teaching because I think I over-egged the pudding today, which is unlike me. I've got quite a lot of stuff to cover, but one of them I actually turned into a handout because I thought then if we don't cover it, then at least I can send all the information to you so you've got that to keep. So, without further ado, I would love you to, and I'm going to do some teaching first and then I'm going to ask you a question. So, you're all here today, presumably because you recognize sensitivity within yourself. You may have children and you recognize it within them. And that's kind of how you've come to your own realizations about sensitivity. Or you may have done your own work on yourself and realized, yeah, I'm quite a sensitive person. And by sensitive, I mean two core things that you notice subtleties and you process information more deeply. But there are four key aspects to being highly sensitive that were outlined by the lady who kind of first coined the idea of people being more sensitive. And that's the lovely Elaine Aron in the 1980s and 90s. She started doing her research and work on highly sensitive people. And those four different areas are easily overwhelmed, okay, prone to feelings of overwhelm. And that can be to do with the external world, that can be to do with noise and light and crowds and people and stuff. And it can also be to do with our internal world. It can be to do with time pressure. It can be to do with big feelings, emotional waves coming at us. It can be to do with having a lot of things on your to-do list, your kind of mental to-do list, and that can feel really overwhelming for us more sensitive people. I'm seeing lots of smiling and nodding. We're all recognizing that one, are we? Yep, me too. And then the second one is noticing, sensing subtleties. Okay, again, internally and externally. We've got a really great neuroceptive system, which is the sense system within us that scans the environment and picks up subtleties. And that, again, could be sounds, lights, tastes, smells, sensations, other people's emotions, the kind of feeling tone of the room, the people that are in it, all of those things. And it's also noticing subtleties in us as well. So, if you're highly sensitive and you've got, I don't know, like an itchy toe, it's kind of beyond irritating. Whereas someone else might be like, yeah, I've got an itchy toe. we'd be probably, especially if our cup was a bit full. I often talk about our cups being full. If you've worked with me before, you know, uh, we've only got so much capacity. And if our cup is filled up with stress, that's when we start noticing those sensations even more. So we sense subtleties around us. We pick up on tiny little things, but they feel like bigger things to us. Most of us have got a really strong sense of empathy. That is number three. And empathy comes in many guises. We've got emotional empathy. Uh, we've got cognitive empathy, which is where we can quite easily understand, like, process in our mind what's going on for someone else and understand why they might be feeling a certain way. But that's on a mental level. And then we've got emotional or affect empathy, which is where we actually feel alongside people. And that's really specific to highly sensitive people. Often, one of the reasons that we can get overwhelmed and overstimulated is that we're actually picking up on everybody else's emotions in the room around us. Have you ever had that before? Or even just one other person's? You'll be feeling totally fine and totally normal, and then someone else will come in and their vibrational mood will hit you and you'll feel it. Lucy's saying 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's hard to kind of differentiate. Well, am I feeling a bit off, or is it because that person's coming and they're feeling a bit off and I'm just picking up on that? And if you've got children, I think it's heightened even more so because you have that desire and mama bear need to protect them as well. So you're feeling their feelings and you're feeling so deeply. It's a really heady mixture in terms of empathy. And then the last one is the depth of processing. And I'll go into that one a little bit more later on after we've done some journaling, because there's a real difference between processing something deeply, so picking it apart, analysing it, working out creative solutions, and highly sensitive brains, when we've got the time and the space and the energy. We actually really like the deep processing. We like to think about things deeply. We like to reflect on situations and pick apart situations and um, understand what's going on. Um, and it can also, again, lead to some overwhelm. Um, and the flip side of it is rumination. So there's deep processing and then there's rumination, and they're actually different. Um, Again, I will go into that later on in a little bit more depth, but rumination isn't so good for highly sensitive people. That's something that tends to fill our cup up rather than reduce the stress in it. Whereas deep processing often reduces the stress in our cup. It helps us to see a situation more clearly or work out a path forward, which helps our little systems to go, oh, okay, we are safe. We can cope with this. We know what we're doing here. So those are kind of the four key parts of being a highly sensitive person, but obviously there's an awful lot more within that that I can't do justice to in a session like today. But hopefully we're going to be really digging into what that means for you specifically, because again, high sensitivity is just like any of the other neurodevelopmental differences in that it's almost like a pie chart. We used to think about autism, ADHD, etc., being on a spectrum, but now we know it's much more like a pie chart. So you've got specific traits in your pie chart, and for each individual autistic, highly sensitive ADHD person, there will be a different your pie, your slice of the pie in each area will be filled to a different degree to someone else's. So some people here will be really super empathetic and pick up on everybody else's feelings. And some people might not resonate with that so much. They might be more about the sensing subtleties or the overwhelm and the overstimulation of different situations. Any questions so far? And what I'd love you to do now, if you don't mind, is pop in the chat which one of those, if it feels comfortable to, and you absolutely don't have to, which one of those four resonated with you the most? You can choose a couple if you want to. Lucy said, can I share this, Lucy? Is this just to me or is this to the group? I can't work
You
it
can share it. It's
out.
fine. Basically, the first three are really clear in my notes, and then it's a bit unsure.
Yeah. Recap four is the headline. I think I've three and four, but the fourth is unclear. We're going to go into four more deeply later on, the difference between deep processing and rumination. So don't worry, we'll be going into that for sure. Julia, empathy, feeling what others are feeling very strongly. Yeah, I see that in you, Julia. I really noticed that in you. Joe, depth of processing. Yes. Lucy, easily overwhelmed. Mm, definitely. I'm relating to all of these. And Lisa, for me, the overwhelm and also the empathy. I often take on board what other people are feeling hugely. And yeah, and they can all lead to the overwhelm, can't they? I think the overwhelm is kind of a byproduct of the other three. Beth, I resonate with all of them, but the overwhelm and depth of processing. Oh, and empathy. Oh, you make me laugh, Jen. Sensing all the subtleties, so I get distracted from the conversation. Oh my gosh, yes. All the empathy, overwhelm mostly when there is conflict. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When there's big feelings and lots going on, I get that. Yeah, and the subtleties and getting distracted. I find more and more as I get older, and I don't know whether it's a perimenopause thing too, but I was out for lunch with my husband and we were in a pub and it was a Sunday, so it was quite full and quite noisy, and I could not concentrate on what he was saying because I was taking in everyone else's conversation and there was the rugby on the TV and the bar staff were talking and I was like, oh, this is a lot. Conflict can feel so painful. Yeah, it really can. It really can. Thanks, Beth. Okay. So, how do we feel about going into some journaling? Thumbs up. Yeah, cool. So, first of all, if you just want to, because we are going to be here for kind of 20 minutes or so journaling, if you just want to make sure that you are comfortable in the chair that you're sitting in, I'm just going to close the chat down for now because I'll get distracted by it otherwise, sensing subtleties. But I'll come back to it later. So, get yourself comfortable in the chair, really feel your feet on the floor and your sits bones against the chair and your back against the chair, and notice how the chair's holding you. Okay, it's got you. And if you need to grab a cushion, to grab a blanket, to grab a hot drink, to do anything to make yourself more comfortable, then please feel free to. And also, please know that throughout this session, if you need to get up and wander around, or if you need to go to the loo, or if you need to do anything, you are so welcome to. You are not trapped in your chair. Movement is absolutely allowed and encouraged if it feels good for you. Okay, so wiggling, standing, stretching, all of it's very good. Okay, so the first question, and I sent you an email yesterday, which was probably a bit short notice for feeling into and reflecting on your oh, am I recording? Yes, I am. For feeling into and reflecting on your childhood, because that's quite a big thing to do. But it was just to kind of prompt you. There was a question at the bottom of the email about just prompting you into starting to think about your childhood and the stories that your family told you about yourself, the anecdotes that came up about you and your personality or the way that you handled something. Cute, or maybe quite shaming, or maybe there was a little bit of both, like kind of cute and also embarrassing you a little bit. Um, Anything that kind of stands out from what your parents told you or your family, your wider family told you about you as a child, and also how they reflected your personality to you. What words did they use to describe you as a child? And I'm thinking specifically between the ages of kind of 2 and 10. I know that's quite a wide category, but before your teen years and after you're a baby. So those kind of childhood years. And so the first question is just thinking about those childhood stories, cute, funny, obtuse, embarrassing, and the words that parents use to describe you. Can you just write some notes on those? Can you just jot some down? And if you are really struggling to think of them, just maybe think about memories that stand out for you. That could be important too. But anything you can think of that stands out about your childhood and what was reflected to you about your personality, funny stories, situations that happened, how you dealt with things, or any core memories for you that really stand out. You know, sometimes we've got just flashes of memories. We don't have huge amount, a lot, often we don't have huge amounts of memories about our childhood, but just the flashes of memories that really stand out. The key ones, maybe 4 or 5 of those would be really good. Just writing them down, and I'll give you about 3 minutes to do that. Okay, you've got about 30 seconds left just to jot any remaining memories down. And you can always come back to this. I'd invite you to come back to this throughout the next week or so. But 30 seconds. Okay, just finishing the sentence that you are on or the idea that you're writing down and heading back through those notes and just underlining any words that stand out or boxing out anything that feels really important or surprising or anything that kind of repeats itself, any repeating themes. Just underline or box out those bits. Take a few minutes to do that. There'll be time for discussion at the end, so if you're desperate to share something, I can feel that in me. So I'm just kind of reflecting back. There might be things that you're desperate to share, and we'll do that a bit later. Okay, everyone ready for the next question? Some of you still going. Give you a couple of minutes. Okay. So the second question or invitation is with your new lens of being a more sensitive person, and particularly with those four key kind of qualifiers of being highly sensitive, if you like, how might you reframe some of those situations, anecdotes, stories that were told to you about being a child? I'll give you 3 minutes to do that one. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, 30 seconds left. And if you've come to kind of the end of that, then do feel free to go back and underline and box out anything that stands out. Okay, and just finishing up the sentence that you are on. Remembering to go back and underline and box out things that stand out or repeat or feel interesting for whatever reason. Okay. Looks like you're all ready to go on question 3. Question 3 is thinking about yourself today. Are there any of those ways of being from your childhood that still ring true for you today? And when do those come into play? When have you noticed them recently? So are any of those ways of being that were noted in your childhood still true today? And what do they look like? Again, we'll do 3 minutes on that one. 30 seconds left for this one. Okay, finishing up the sentence that you are on. We've got one more question in this part. So again, just going back and underlining anything that stands out if you want to, if that feels helpful. Okay, question 4. How could you start to show yourself some more tenderness, compassion, or support when a more challenging aspect of your sensitivity comes up? How could you show yourself more tenderness, compassion, or support when more challenging aspects of your sensitivity come up? And again, we'll do 3 minutes on that one too. Then there'll be time for some discussion. Off you go. Just under 30 seconds left. And just finishing the sentence, thought, or idea that you're on just now. And again, if you want to go back and outline and underline, box out bits that felt important, please do. Oh, Beth, thank you for inviting us all to take a stretch. I think that's such a lovely thing to do, especially when we're sitting hunched over. Please do feel free, take a lovely stretch, a neck roll, a wiggle in your seat. That's it, Joe. Have a good wiggle. Perfect. So, how has that left you? What insights did you gain from that, if any? And how has it kind of affected how you're seeing things? Anybody feel like sharing today? And you don't have to, there's no pressure. Go for it.
I hadn't realised. I had a memory pop up this week, so I must have been tuning in to this. But I was like, why is this memory popping up? And it was about when we were younger, we had we got a dog, and we had a choice between two dogs. And I was almost distressed at the thought we might get one of these dogs. And it was the dog that my brother and sister both preferred. And so I've been like harboring this kind of shame around the fact my parents actually chose the dog um, that I liked and wanted, and I felt so guilty and so yeah, like so much shame and guilt was rising up when this memory came up. I was like, God, how, like they obviously just, I obviously just went off on like a very, went off on one. And then as we were writing it, I was like, oh, it's suddenly twigged. I was like, it was because it's a wiry furred dog. And I just couldn't, there was something about it. It was, I've never thought of myself as having sensory processing. Like I know the empathy and all of this, but I was like, I think it was a sensory processing thing because for me, a dog, it's the stroking and it's the cuddling that I needed, I think, at that time. And the dog did become my like therapy dog, I think. And so it was the one we went for had really soft fur. And I hadn't realized that that was something that was coming up. And you've just helped me kind of have a bit more compassion because I think my reaction at the time is quite similar to my son's reaction. It's almost this I didn't know how to express like that. I can't handle that. But I've had a bit of compassion for the fact at least I was advocating for myself, even if it was probably in a very it could have seemed a certain way and I wasn't that empathetic to my brother and sister. But I don't know, it's just really helped me find some compassion and a bit of understanding of there's other sensory things that I've really found recently, like certain touch that I find really I can't bear. And I've been feeling guilty about that, or a bit like, well, it doesn't make any sense, but now it does. Like it's just a sensory processing thing. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It's
Mm.
just my body's reaction to certain sensory stimulus is it's a no or it's a yes. And I can't pretend it's a yes if it's a no.
Yeah.
Um, I react how I react. So
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
that was a really strong reaction to that wiry-haired dog, and that's absolutely what highly sensitive systems do. They have really strong reactions to things, and without anyone to help you make sense of that strong reaction, of course you then felt some shame or guilt or yeah, something about it. Oh, that makes total sense. That's such a beautiful share. Thank you. I really resonate with that. Thanks, Beth. Anyone else feeling like sharing? Annalisa.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I also extending from what Beth just shared so beautifully, um, that's really just helped generally me feel more compassion for myself. And I hope this is the start of that because like even for instance, last night I went to the O2 to see Peter Kay, and I found the whole experience like a real assault on my nervous system,
Mm.
like just the noises, the smells of other people around me, and I think in those moments I think there's a lot of rhetoric that is coming probably from my childhood of sort of like, don't be silly, come on, don't be silly, enjoy it, look where you are, this is other people are enjoying this, come on.
Mm.
And also the sense after an experience like that of how tired I am. I often feel exhausted and I feel exhausted today. And I'm like, I need to just say to myself, as I would my children, and I think I'm really sorry, I'm going off the point, but like I really this is also really helping me see how I am treating my children in a way that I would have liked to be treated. Not all the time, because sometimes still I'm annoying.
Yeah.
But I really try because it's yeah, that was a lot for me. It was a lot. And that it's okay to feel like this and that there are other people who feel like this too, rather than this sense of like, come on, you're being weak or this is silly of me. It's actually like, no, this is just something that I am processing this way and that is okay. I mean, I'm 43. I feel like I should have realized this earlier, but it's really, really important to know it now.
Mm. I love the amount of compassion I'm hearing for yourself there, Annalisa, and that phrase of you're being silly.
Mm,
I think most of us can relate to that. Most of us
mm,
heard that in one way, shape, or form
mm,
when we were growing up,
mm,
because things were big for us and things were overwhelming for us, as they are for all small children. But when you're more sensitively attuned to things, it's bigger. It really is. Thank you so much for that juicy share. And yeah, and I love every time anyone speaks, I can see other people either nodding or their eyes widening, and I can see this, oh yeah, that's me too. So thank you. It's yeah, it's great for you to share, and it's really helping other people. Thank you. Anyone else? Julia.
Um, I something came up for me, which was something that I actually carried throughout my life with me, which is that my primary school teacher described me as a mimosa. And a mimosa is a flower
Mm.
that when there's a tiny bit of wind or, if you go near it, trying to touch it, it closes its petals. And she said that to my parents when I was a child, and they always relayed that back to me. Oh, you're such a mimosa. And, actually, it's quite a nice way to be described as a very sort of delicate flower.
Mm.
But I think there was, it was actually a criticism. And I realized how much shame I've been carrying about being sensitive. And it actually is the same as you said, Annalisa, that we need to just accept that as a part of ourselves and not be negative about it. But I think because I grew up in the 80s and it was just people didn't talk about it in the terms that we're talking about it now.
Mm.
So yeah.
And yeah, and your teacher describing you as a beautiful, delicate,
Yeah, and
discerning flower.
I actually don't know if she meant it in a negative way, but I think my dad has always been very critical of me, and he always said it like that. And even as a teenager, I had friends who said, "Oh, you're so hypersensitive," and it was always a negative thing. Um, like a lot of things.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful gift as well when we can recognize the gifts that it does bring.
Yeah, but a lot of things now have been reframed, like being an introvert, it's a good thing, and
Yes.
so. And
Yeah.
also, I want to say hello to Joanne because we are both tech pixies. It's really weird that I'm seeing you here. Yeah.
Oh, know each other from another realm. I love
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Only online though. Yeah,
How funny.
yeah. Okay. Well, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Julia, for sharing that. Yeah, I love that. And I'm wondering how you can kind of recapture that mimosa as something really beautiful and positive and really frame it as that, whether your teacher meant it like that or not, it is. And actually it reminded me of I was called, my mum always called me Queen Victoria when I was little. She said I had a face like Queen Victoria whenever I met anyone new. It was very blank and a bit grumpy. And if anyone came near me, I gave them a bit of a, I don't want you anywhere near me look, like, what are you doing? And she was always mortified. She was always really embarrassed, and especially because my sister was really friendly towards new people or, cashiers in supermarkets and things like that. And anyone that tried to talk to me, I would be looking the other way or I'd have a very kind of po face. And I was journaling for myself just then, and I was reframing it as, yes, it could be Queen Victoria like, it could be rude, it could be shy if we're making it slightly less unkind. But then I was thinking that maybe it's discerning and maybe it's cautious. And maybe I was right to, when faced with new people who I don't know who they are or what their intentions are or how they're going to interact with me. Maybe absolutely I should, as a child, have been sitting back and going, I'm not interacting with you until I feel comfortable with you. And that's okay. And it was also making me reflect on the fact that I've built up so many protective parts around that cautious discerning part and actually went the other way and became a real people pleaser and a fawner, and I'm the one in situations if somebody's looking awkward I will go in and make sure that they're okay. And I'm wondering how I can allow, how can I can tap into, because I can feel her there, that cautious, discerning, shy child. I wonder how I can allow her to be there a little bit more and not always make sure everyone else is okay, fawn, people please. I'm wondering about that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Before we move on, does anybody else have anything they want to share?
Yeah, so I'd just like to add actually what you said just really resonated with me because I'm older than all of you, and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and my dad had a very Victorian perspective. Children should be seen and not heard. And one thing that he used to say to me when I was a child was, "I do wish you would smile, Joe."
Mm.
So that made me always feel that his love was conditional and that I could never live up to that. I mean, instead of kind of, the other side of that is that somebody could kind of, try to see what's the matter, or, how are you feeling? But it was always, "I do wish you would smile, Joe." And that's just kind of stayed with me. He was very distant, um, emotionally. There was nothing. So,
Mm.
I've always suffered with my mental health. And when that became apparent,
Mm.
I suppose he didn't know how to deal with it. So he'd just walk away. So then I would keep feeling this rejection over and over again. And I think that yeah, it just kind of never left me really. So it's just something that I'm working on all the time. And, I know that we're all doing the best that we can, with what we have. And I have a lot more compassion for him now because, both my parents died 10 years ago. And I suppose it was that generation, it was that generation.
Mm. But I'm noticing the fact that he was more concerned with other people's perception of you than he was with how you were feeling or what you needed in that moment, what support you might have needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard. And that's actually making me think I hadn't thought of that for myself in that same situation either, Joe. So thank you. So, yeah, what support did I need when I was feeling cautious around other people? Thank you for that share. Really, really powerful stuff, ladies.
Could I share, Jenny?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. What everyone has shared, I want to say first of all, has been enlightening and illuminating, and like something that I've needed too. So thanks for that. Yeah, for me, like I, what I, some of the stories that my mum used to tell, it's always my mum's stories that are, I don't know, imprinted on my brain. So there was one which she used to say that what I used to do basically was climb out of the double buggy and run away, like in a shopping centre. And then I'd have like a thing of going to the like security guard, who then there would be like a tannoy. Can the mother of Lucy Tobias come to the security booth? Which on one hand it sounds hilarious, and when my mum told the story it was in a kind of humorous way, but also there was this kind of like cupboard shame kind of thing of like others have said, where like Julia with the mimosa or something, or Joanne with your dad, yeah, how things are kind of wrapped up, but the energy behind it is still there. And as a sensitive, I think, I felt it, and it's not yeah, hidden. And then kind of I noted in one of the journaling exercises that there is this kind of theme of running away, or I'm about to do a big kind of, or there's this big kind of escape of whole new country, and yeah, and so in the last bit I kind of try to wrap it up a bit differently, in the sense of, what if I was it comes down to moving away from unsupportive environments, people, or situations, to those which feel better and enable me to be me.
Mm.
Because I'm not a kind of cookie cutter person. I don't fit in a box neatly, and
Yeah, and I'm wondering how it feels to reframe it like that, Lucy.
It's affirming, and so I did write. There was a bit where I wrote that I was like pushing out to find my edges, to find the reach of my capability, and needing to change the energy of the situation, and seeking fun and play could be instead called adventurous, curious, wild, brave, bold, courageous, and demonstrating my preferences.
Mm. Mm. That gave me goosebumps. I love all of those.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I'd invite you to maybe after the call, really feeling into all those words that you wrote, which ones feel most true or felt most true in that specific situation of you getting out of the buggy? Which ones really felt true for you? Was it the moving away from an environment that felt uncomfortable, or was it that you were bored and wanted to play? And can you get a sense of what that was? I'd be really curious.
Brave is the one that is
Calling out already.
jumping out the page.
And that wasn't recognized in you as a child as how brave you were.
No, I can't remember anyone saying, well, so it was like somebody else said, kind of said, but then like dismissed almost of like, because again, there's this, we live in a society, even now in 2025, and I acknowledge it in myself when I'm around children, of this is how a child should be, or this is how a person should be. And then there's no kind of scope for the expansion of someone's whole being.
Mm. There's no scope for the expansion of someone's whole being, especially when they're a child, because we want to put them in a box. It's
Yeah,
easier
so
for
like
us.
my niece, sorry, I didn't mean to interject
No,
there.
that's right. Go for it.
Yeah, so like my niece, my brother's eldest, she's going to be 9 in May. And so another family member said that she was, is it precocious? Is that the word? And I looked up the meaning of precocious. Does anyone know the meaning of the word precocious?
Go for
It
it,
means
Lucy.
it means like old before your years. And I said, and it was really interesting. So the family member is older than me. And so we've had a 45-year relationship. I'm 45 and a bit. And like people said that about me. Like, and I was like, I noticed this in her, and she's so wise before her years. She sees things, and she's being shut down
It's used in a negative way.
because, well, you child shouldn't, you don't have a right at this table.
Mm.
You're not, your voice is not welcome here yet.
Mm. Yeah, such important noticings, Lucy. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry for that little bit of anger. That was my inner 8-year-old.
Yeah, quite right. And that little one in the buggy, maybe. I loved it. Really, really hold that with reverence. So I'm aware of the time. We are going to go over, I'm afraid. If anybody does need to leave, then please do. I will send the recording out later so you can always catch up with it. That's no problem at all. I really appreciate your time. So if you do, that's absolutely no problem. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to share, that just things that I've learned about being highly sensitive that have really shifted how I view things that I really wanted to bring to this call and share with you today in case they felt helpful for you too. They might not land, they might not resonate, but for me, they really did. And the first one is um, when you are more sensitive, because your needs are more intense than non-highly sensitive children. You do have more needs than non-highly sensitive children, especially as a child. You will have needed more from your caregivers because your system went into a little fight flight response or a freeze response much more easily than your peers. And when you are in those fight, flight, freeze responses, you need someone with you to co-regulate, and you need strategies in place to support you so that you don't go into those so much. But most of our parents didn't know about being highly sensitive, or what that meant, or how it meant that you do need to parent differently if you have a more sensitive child, and that they might have more needs. And so a lot of us have learnt to shut down those needs and feel often like we are needy. And that is just, if you ever have the sense that you feel like you're needy in any way, it's very likely because your needs have been shut down at some point. Being needy is only a symptom of you not having your needs met. It's not something that's wrong with you. We all have needs and they all deserve to be met, especially as children when we can't meet them for ourselves. And so,
Sorry, Jenny, can I really
yes,
quickly interrupt? Just
yes,
is a flip side of that being incredibly self-sufficient? Because
mm,
I don't associate with that feeling needy at all.
yes,
Is
yes,
that, would that be?
yeah. There will very likely. Oh, you're welcome, Lucy. You will very likely have suppressed the needy parts and become very, very self-sufficient because you recognized early on that other people weren't going to meet your needs for you. So you do as much as you can yourself. So that makes total sense. And another thing that can come into play when that does happen to you as a child is that you start feeling guilty for having needs. And so you kind of identify with this sense of guilt when somebody is asking something of you. You often identify with this sense of, oh, I should give it to them, and I feel guilty if I haven't, or I feel guilty if I can't give that to them at this moment, especially with children or family members. I feel guilty if I can't give that to them. I feel guilty if I haven't done that. I should have been better. I should have done more. The flip side of guilt is resentment, and actually guilt and resentment feel the same in our bodies. And it's because, and often the guilt is there because the resentment has been shut down. So as a child, when you are asked of something that is too much for you, um, you, as a child, when you're asked to do something that was too much for you, you will have felt natural resentment. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I can't give that. I don't have capacity to give that. And because that was shut down time and time again, you lost that resentment and the guilt came in on top. Joe, do you want to ask something? Did you mean to put your hand up? Oh, how funny.
Sorry, no, I
Mine's
didn't.
mine's done that before. Don't worry. And I think I've done it and I haven't even touched anything. So yeah, don't worry at all. Um,
May I ask something?
you can, of
Um,
course, Lucy.
and it's just about what the other Jenny was saying about that, like self-reliance.
Mm,
So that's something that I really associate with, and like that. It's like strong, independent person, woman. And so this is something that I've just recently signed up for something, another like program. And the first part is what do you want to let go of? And so my grandma was like strong, independent woman. She was very, almost like fierce.
mm,
But then I'm very much wondering if what is being lost in that because of, do you see what I mean?
mm,
Like you said about the guilt and the resentment, there'll be a flip side. And so I've had to learn to manage by myself,
mm,
but that means that perhaps I'm detached from
mm-hmm.
support that perhaps I really need.
Definitely. And that's exactly what I'm coming to. And you put that point so beautifully. So thank you for clarifying and sharing that for everyone here. Yeah, so the flip side of this guilt that a lot of us might feel is resentment. Or if you have always looked after yourself, you might not identify with the guilt, you might identify more with the resentment. But essentially, they're both two sides of the same coin. If you identify as someone who often feels guilty, the first step is to just really check in with yourself as to whether it is guilt or whether it is resentment, because there will be a lot of cases where for example, like the PTA are asking you to do something again, and you say no because you actually can't because you don't have time, and then you feel guilt. Is it guilt or are you resentful because you've already given so much to them and it's free and it's your time and it's your time that it's impacting on? Da, 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 da. So just notice, is it guilt or is it resentment? And then Jenny's laughing. Is that resonating, Jen?
Just resonating with Bethany's comment that I feel so much guilt about feeling resentment. That cycle.
I hear you. Resentment is your boundary. Resentment is, so this is what I'm getting onto. Resentment, when we can tap into what we feel most resentful about, that is our, at the, any area in our life that we feel resentful about at the moment is where we have unmet needs. Okay. And particularly in line with our sensitivity, we might have pushed those needs aside as not really being needs. Like Annalisa was saying, like, oh, I should be enjoying this. Everyone else is having a good time, or this shouldn't be stressful for me, or I should just be really in the moment and just having fun, but all these things are impacting on me. When we have done that to ourselves, we've pushed our resentment down, and that's where our needs are. Our needs are underneath that resentment. So if you can identify, and this is an invitation for you to do after this session, is to identify where you feel most resentful in your life currently, where resentment repeatedly maybe crops up for you, where you feel that sense of irritation or that, oh, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to, I don't know, pay more for that thing, or I don't want to give to the PTA, or I don't want to, go and look after granddad again this weekend. Like, notice where the resentment is popping up. And what is underneath that is your suppressed needs. Okay. And those needs are really important. And I'm not saying that we don't go and visit granddad or we don't go to the PTA thing, but we might want to put some supports in place because of our sensitive nature, or some boundaries around our giving because of our sensitive nature, so that we don't end up depleted and burnt out, because that is a really common theme for highly sensitive people, is burnout. And when we can tap into our resentment and we can try and work out what needs are going on underneath that resentment, we are much less likely to burn out. So that's the first one. I'm just going to check the chat because I can see that it's pinging. I feel so much guilt about feeling the resentment. Yes, because it was probably squished out of you as a child. Because it was a big feeling that wasn't allowed. Lucy, really aware of this in terms of giving to others and nothing for myself, and people want me to do more. Yeah, that's your boundary, Lucy. That's your body telling you this is my boundary. Finding my no and equally aware of guilt. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And sometimes guilt will be guilt, because guilt's healthy. It's healthy to feel guilty about situations in which we've harmed someone or upset someone. And even if we didn't mean to, that's normal. But if it's resentment, that's where our needs are sitting. And then the second thing is this rumination and deep thinking. And Lucy, I know you wanted me to go more into this. So deep processing is, I don't know about any of you, but if I've been on a big night out with friends, particularly friends who aren't kind of in this sphere of self-reflection and personal development, other friends, like school friends you've had for years and years, if I've been at a big thing with them for a night and I come home, I can't just go to bed, go to sleep and switch off. My brain has to process what has gone on that evening. And it's not even these, it used to be in a kind of beating myself up way or wondering if I said something embarrassing way. And it's not even that anymore. It's just all the bits from the evening that I didn't have time to process because there was so much sensory stuff going on for me at the time and so many feelings coming up and so many conversations going on. And I couldn't process it all at the time. I need time and space to process that before my body can decompress and go to sleep. And similarly, one of the things that I wrote down was when I moved house, when I was 18 months old, I cried for at 6 weeks after I moved house every single day at my mum because I wanted to go back to the house with the flowery curtains. That's what I kept saying to her. I want to go back to the house with the flowery curtains, because that transition for me was so huge. And because, again, I'm taking in all of this sensory information about this new place, and this new place feels so foreign to me and unsafe to my system, it took me 6 weeks to process this move that happened, and probably longer, but that's when I stopped crying about the flowery curtains. I don't know whether that had just been shut down or whether I had processed it, but 6 weeks. And we know with highly sensitive children, when they go back to school after a holiday, we can expect 6 weeks before they settle back in again. So we're basically at half term again before they've settled bang, but especially after the summer holidays, because they take time to take in all the new information, to assimilate it in their system and to process it to a point where they feel safe. How's that landing with everybody? Yeah. And then the flip side of that is rumination. And often, as highly sensitive people, we can ruminate on situations, particularly if there's been a situation that's been upsetting, or we're anxious about something, or we're worried about someone else, or we've said something, we're worried about how that's landed with someone. We might ruminate. And rumination is basically our brain being, if we imagine our brain as a car and it's stuck in the mud and we're just spinning our wheels, it's not really getting us anywhere. So two things that can help in that situation is most people who are highly sensitive are external processors. That means that we have to be able to process something that's tricky. It's helpful for us to process out loud rather than going round and round and round in it in our heads. You might notice that some people are internal processors. They just and that can have been squashed out of you. So just because that isn't true for you doesn't mean that it wasn't historically true for you. If you were someone that processed out loud, but it landed really badly with your family, you might have learned to process things internally. But largely we're external process. So that can be really helpful. But often rumination is a call to check in with our body and to feel a feeling. Because we feel so deeply, and this is to be kind of caveated with, you might need some support for this, particularly if it's something big and you're ruminating about it. You might need someone else to co-regulate with you, a therapist, a friend, a kind family member. You might need somebody there with you. But tuning into your body and just noticing where the tension, the holding, the tightness is the first step. So if you notice you're ruminating, check in with your body. Breathed out deeply when you said this. Yeah, Lucy. Yeah. And there's been instances before, now that I know this, where I'll have been really ruminating about something and I've almost been dissociated, like manically cleaning or something, and it's all going on in my head. And then I'll go, oh no, I need to check in with my body. And I'll sit and I'll just feel into where that is. And often there'll be a yawn, maybe a burp, or there might be a cry. There will be an energetic release of some sort. And it's magical how the thoughts just suddenly quiet when there's been that energetic release in your body, because your body was holding on to something that it needed to let go of. So rumination is either a call to process something out loud, often, or to go into your body and feel where that tension is. And you might want to move your body. You might feel it stuck in your shoulder and you might give it a wiggle. You sigh a lot. Yes, Julia, that is your body doing somatic releasing. Really, really beautiful that your body naturally does that. So somatic release is a sigh. We're letting something go. So I hope that's helpful. Any thoughts on those? I was going to start talking to you about empathy so that it doesn't drain you, because we've all identified, I think, as being empathetic people, and that can be really draining. But I have luckily created a cheat sheet on that. So I'll send that to you because I'm just so aware of your time today and we've gone way over. But did anyone have anything that they wanted to share from either of those, or just in general, or anything you want to take away from the session today?
I'll share if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
So there was something that you said about the time frame, like the time processing frame. So on Facebook, somebody shared that their cat is really struggling at the moment and asked the question, does anyone know any animal communicators? And I shared an animal communicator. And I asked, because the lady said that the cat is experiencing grief, or like the emotion of grief is what she's feeling with the cat. And nobody's died, but there's the grief because somebody's not there, their person. Anyway, I really feel like as highly sensitives, there's like a bridge between humans and animals. I don't know if that's like for me, because like, we often discount things that animals feel, but they're more in tune with their feelings than the
Yeah,
average Joe.
absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that highly sensitives are like that in between.
And we're often highly sensitive people are often drawn to relationships with animals. Often as children, we were the children that absolutely loved cats, robins, horses, whatever. We're really often drawn to animals, definitely, definitely. And I think there probably is some kind of psychic bridge there as well between noticing their feelings and also noticing. And it's really important to notice animals because animals are sensitively attuned. Animals are highly sensitively attuned, especially dogs and cats, because they're domesticated. They're really sensitively attuned to our environment. And what you'll notice is they are constantly meeting their own needs throughout the day and they are constantly doing somatic releases because they don't process things cognitively like we do. They are constantly processing on a somatic level. I think my dog was my co-regulator. Yes. 45 years old and still drawn to creatures. Ladies, it's been an absolute joy, and I wonder if I could just invite you to pop one thing in the comments that you're going to take away from today's session. If you're going to take one thing away for yourself, what will it be? What are you going to take away from today's session? I'm really grateful for everyone's stories too, Lucy. You're a proud mimosa. Yeah, have more self-compassion. And Elisa, more compassion when I notice my sensitivities. Yeah, that's a journey. That's amazing. And you're, yeah, brilliant that you're going to start to do that. I'm going to allow myself to explore my resentments. Yes, please, Beth. Notice those. And Lucy, one word, validity. Joe, sensitivity is such a gift. Actually, even though it's intense and exhausting, it really, really is. It's why we're drawn to working with people and animals. And yeah, and just our presence can actually really be nourishing for people around us. So don't forget that you often don't really have, as a highly sensitive person, you don't really have to give so much. Just your presence can be really helpful because people can feel that you can feel them, if that makes sense. And that in itself is a real gift because there are so many people in the world that don't feel other people, and in their presence, people don't feel seen, don't feel heard. So that in itself, Jenny, the normality of what I've experienced and feel, I need to reflect on my own self-sufficiency. Yes, that sounds big work for you, Jem. Noticing what your needs might be and how to start to support those. Such rich, gorgeous, generous sharing today. Thank you so much for being here. I've absolutely loved it. I'm just noticing my shoulders throughout the session have just dropped and dropped and dropped. And I'm feeling really in a lovely place. So I hope the same is for you too. I hope you leave feeling nourished. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Jenny.
Jenny.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Right.